Welcome to Politics News Wolf US channel. The Ukrainian armed forces began to change the fate of the war with tactical changes, taking advantage of the current passive state of the Russian army. The Ukrainian forces made remarkable strides, especially yesterday on the eastern front lines. You know that at the moment, the most violent clashes are taking place in the eastern regions of Ukraine. That is, forces on both sides of the war are often scattered along Ukraine's eastern front. That's why every second passes critical moments are constantly occurring on the eastern Ukrainian front lines. One of the most important centers where these critical moments are experienced has been the city of Edar for about a week, and for more than a week, the city has been under the control of Ukrainian forces. The Russian army, on the other hand, began preparations for an attack from Knapole yesterday in order to put an end to Ukraine's domination in Voda. After the Russian forces had fully prepared, they advanced towards the west of the. A large tank battalion of the invading Russian army was also accompanying the 155th Russian Marine Infantry Group in this region. So the Russians were literally ready to attack the Ukrainian troops from the west of Wall, but things did not go as planned for the Russian army trying to hunt the Ukrainian forces from the west of the city. The 155th Marine Corps and 31 Russian tanks suddenly fell from the hunter position to that of the. The reason for this was that the Ukrainian army had already completed its counter preparations in the city and was fully waiting to counter-attack the Russian tank battalion. And the 155th Marine Corps first encountered an unexpected drone army west of the city of Edar. Ukrainian UAVs took action and targeted the Russian tank battalion on the western front lines. The Ukrainian armed forces began the OV. And Ukrainian drone swarms blew up 31 Russian tanks in succession in this area. As a result of their incredible mistake, a huge Russian tank battalion was almost destroyed in Vlada. Images of this air operation by the Ukrainians were shared on social media. In these images, it was evident that Ukrainian drones were hunting Russian tanks one by one, in Vol. A Russian tank started emitting black smoke as it was evading Ukrainian UAVs, and was blown up abruptly by another Ukrainian drone hit in the rest of the images. It was seen that a group of Russian soldiers from the other tank, which was intact, left the vehicle after one of the Russian tanks next to each other blew up. Then this tank became the target of Ukrainian UAVs and was blown up with a big. It's estimated that the Russian soldiers who tried to escape with the effect of the explosions received serious injuries. In addition, the footage of the attack was the biggest proof that Bor's western front line was a graveyard for 31 Russian tanks. Ukrainian UAVs literally did not leave a single Russian tank intact. It is estimated that the footage of the attack was also taken on an unmanned aerial vehicle. Every time the drone that took the video changed its angle, a different Russian tank was seen. Following the drone attack, black smoke covered the area. It is claimed that some Russian soldiers managed to escape from the attack even though they may have managed to escape. The Ukrainian drone attack had a clearly heavy toll after this heavy defeat in Olyar. It was reported that some Russian commanders who coordinated this war were asked to resign because, as we mentioned, the losses were very serious. The Ukrainian armed forces may have set a new record with this unmanned aerial vehicle operation. The Ukrainians, which managed to blow up 31 Russian tanks within minutes, actually carried out offensive operations against the invading forces in the city of Olyar. A few days. Russian troops had been trying to gather in the south of the city and in the border areas for about a week, but the Ukrainian army managed to upset almost all the plans of the Russians in Vda with the latest drone attacks. Until these attacks, the strategy of the Russians in the city was usually to attack Ukrainians in small groups from the west of Fuda. But as we mentioned, the Russians had to retreat from the city after losing a large tank. After all this, we can clearly see that the Ukrainian army has dominated this war with drone. The Russians have suffered huge losses, especially for several months, often due to Ukrainian drone strikes. The reason for this is that the Ukrainian army has completely changed its tactics and is now carrying out point-and-shoot attacks on the areas where the invading forces are located. Therefore, large Russian groups can easily become the target of Ukrainian forces. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to update this tactic with each passing days. In some areas, Ukrainians use scout drones as well as attack drones. These scout drones usually appear before and during attacks. Ukraine's lookout drones locate invading troops before the attack. Afterwards, the lookout would join the other drones that carry out the attack. Record the operation on video. The Ukrainian army also employs this tactic in the city of Bma. A few days ago, Ukrainian forces used UAVs to locate Russian troops in the suburban areas of the Russian-dominated city of Bma. After a very short time, the mobilized Ukrainian forces were able to easily remove the invading soldiers from these suburban areas with an offensive operation. In other words, the Ukrainian army has now turned this war in its favor, thanks to the UAVs, and every day the Ukrainian army is constantly updating the unmanned aerial vehicles in its inventory. If you remember, the Ukrainian armed forces used to frequently use Soviet-era drones before the new to carry out airstrike operations across the border. By adding jet engines to these drones, the Ukrainian forces were able to carry out airstrikes even in the territory of Russia. Currently, such AVs are also in the Ukrainian army. In fact, this situation is quite dangerous for the Russians because the Ukrainian armed forces can carry out serious airstrikes against the invading Russians from both the eastern front lines and the southern regions with similar air attack. Considering that the range of these Soviet-era jet-powered drones of Ukraine is about 1,000 kilometers, Ukrainian forces can easily target Crimea from the south, especially from the city of Kherson, and Russian territory from the east, namely from the Luhan region, or front lines such as Kyiv. On the other hand, the Russians have not found a definitive solution against these Ukrainian drones so far, and if the Russians cannot find a solution in the coming, Ukraine can achieve very serious successes when the breaking points of the war are expired. And in this way, maybe even the duration of the war may be shortened. But aside from finding a cure for these drones, it seems very difficult for the Russian army to fix its current situation. Yes, in VDA, the Russian army lost 31 tanks, but the losses of the Russians are not limited to this. The Russian army has lost about 3,300 tanks in this war so far. This number includes tanks captured by Ukrainian forces from the inmate soldier. On the other hand, Western and US tanks that are planned to be delivered to the Ukrainian army should not be ignored. In other words, while the Russians are losing so many war tanks, it seems that Ukraine's supply of many tanks from the West and the USA will also affect the trench wars which are currently taking place, mostly in the city of Bakhmut. With the supply of NATO-level tanks to the Ukrainian army, the course of trench warfare in and around Bakhmut is expected to change. The fact that Ukraine was so ahead in both airstrikes and tank warfare was actually a surprise to the Russians. But Ukraine needs these and more to regain its freedom. Thank you for watching the video. If you find it useful, please comment and share the video for us. It will make our channel more known. See you in the following videos. Thank you very much.